Good morning. We are now on the record in case number 2021-00053, 2021-0054, 2021-00055, 2021-00056, 2021-00057, and 2021-00055, which are the 2-year fuel adjustment clause reviews for Kentucky Power Company, East Kentucky Power Cooperative, Kentucky Utilities Company, Louisville Gas and Electric Company, Duke Energy Company, and Big Rivers Electric, respectively. My name is Michael Schmidt. I'm chairman of the Public Service Commission, and I will be presiding today. Joining me today via video conferencing will be Vice Chairman Kent Chandler and Dr. Talina Matthews. At this time, I would normally caution attendees to please set your cellular phones to the silent mode or turn them off. The Commission is hosting this hearing via video conferencing. In addition to the normal courtesies regarding cell phones, these tips may help with clarity and avoid feedback issues for the video conference hearing. First, mute your microphone if you are not speaking. Attorneys, when interjecting, please state your name so the video record is clear. If you use a phone for the audio and a computer for the video, turn off the computer audio, otherwise there will be feedback. If you are in a room with several people on their own computers, turn off the computer audio for all but one computer. Otherwise, there will be feedback. If another participant is in a nearby office, close the doors between the offices. Sound carries further than one thinks, which can cause feedback. Once in the GoToMeeting software platform, go to your settings. The icon looks like a gear to ensure the microphone setting is on the microphone you are using. There's a pull-down menu feature in GoToMeeting settings that will list the available microphones. Use wired headphones or wired earbuds for better sound quality. Wired is preferred because the wireless devices may lose power depending upon the length of the hearing. Keep a charger nearby in case your battery runs low. And please alert the Commission if you're experiencing technology failure that prevents your participation at any time in the proceedings. Attorneys should contact staff at the previously provided cell phone number. The 2-year reviews require the Public Service Commission to examine the operation of fuel adjustment clauses for the companies, to disallow any improper expenses, and, if appropriate, to reset the fuel charge to be included in a utility's base rates. We will proceed today by taking the cases in sequence, with Kentucky Utilities and Louisville Gas and Electric taken concurrently. Testimony has been previously given and has been filed in the record along with numerous documents. Any witnesses called to testify today will be subjected to cross-examination by staff counsel for the purpose of obtaining additional information or clarification of information previously on the record. First, we will start with case number 2021-00053, Kentucky Power Company. At this time, would counsel for Kentucky Power Company please identify himself or herself along with the witnesses who are expected to testify in today's proceedings.
Good morning, Chairman Schmidt. Katie Glass with the law firm of Stites and Harbison, 421 West Main Street, Frankfort, Kentucky. Also with the law firm of Stites and Harbison is Mark Overstreet. Appearing with me today, Kentucky Power's witnesses are Brian West, Jeffrey Dial, Clinton Stutler, Jason Stiegel, David Mell, and Douglas Rosenberger.
Thank you. And for Commission staff?
Yes, Your Honor. Jeb Penny on behalf of the Commission and also with Commission staff. We'll be participating at John Rogness, Mike Foley, and Sarah Jankowski.
Okay. Checking the record, I see the public notice has been given and filed into the record. Is that correct, Ms. Glass?
Yes, Your Honor, proof of publication was filed into the record on May 11th, 2021.
Are there any outstanding motions, Ms. Glass?
Yes, Your Honor, I believe we have one motion for confidential treatment outstanding.
If during this proceeding, it looks like a question is asked or an answer is about to be given which you feel may compromise your position on confidentiality, please let us know immediately, and then we'll go into confidential session if necessary. At this time, we'll take comments from the public. Should anyone from the public like to provide the Commission with public comment, instructions to call in are located on our website, psc.ky.gov. The phone lines will remain open for several minutes at the start of this hearing and close if there are no callers or after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Should you call in, please state your name and address for the record before making your statement, and please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If there is more than one caller, please be respectful and allow one person to make a statement at a time. It should be noted that comments may always be submitted on the PSC's website at psc.ky.gov. All right, Mr. Penny, will you man the phone lines for a couple of minutes and see if we have any member of the public who would like to make a comment?
Yes, Your Honor. This is Jeb Penny with the Public Service Commission. Is there anybody online that wishes to make a comment in Kentucky Power's fuel adjustment clause case? I hear none, Your Honor. I'll keep it on just in case someone wants to chime in.
We'll wait for a minute or so to give someone an opportunity to call in and speak if they would like. All right, Mr. Penny, it doesn't appear as if we're going to have a public comment for Kentucky Power. So at this time, Ms. Glass or Mr. Overstreet, you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll call Brian West.
Okay, thank you. I guess at this time it's best just to swear in all of your witnesses at the same time. So would all of the Kentucky Power witnesses please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You do?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Glass, you may conduct direct of Mr. West.
Thank you. Mr. West, can you please state your name, business address, and position?
Sure. My name is Brian West. I'm Vice President of Regulatory and Finance for Kentucky Power Company. My address is 1645 Winchester Avenue, Ashland, Kentucky, 41101.
And did you cause to be filed into the record of this proceeding testimony and responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any corrections to your testimony or responses to data requests?
Yes, I do. I have one correction to a discovery response.
Okay, can you please identify the discovery response?
Sure. It is staff 2-2, attachment 2, and it's under the heading of purchased power.
Okay, and what is the correction?
Okay. In the second sentence that starts in this forecast, at the end of that sentence, after the parenthetical for AEG, the rest of that sentence should be stricken, and Ohio Valley Electric Corporation, OVEC. A couple lines down, there is a sentence that begins, the OVEC purchases reflect. That entire sentence should be stricken. And finally, under generation for sales, at the very bottom, in the second line where it says portions of OVEC purchases and, the words OVEC purchases and should be stricken.
Thank you. Do you have any other corrections?
No, that was it.
Okay, with the exception of those corrections, if I were to ask you the same questions in your testimony and responses to data requests, would your responses be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. And Your Honor, is it all right if I just go ahead and move on to our other witnesses at this time?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Next, we'll call Jeffrey Dial. Mr. Dial, can you please state your name, business address, and position?
My name is Jeffrey C. Dial. I'm employed by the American Electric Power Service Corporation at 1 Riverside Plaza, Columbus, Ohio. And my position is the Director of Coal Transportation and Reagent Procurement.
Did you cause to be filed into the record of this proceeding testimony and responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any corrections to those responses or to your testimony?
Yes, I do. Under staff 1-03, under subpart C, where it starts as of October 31st, 2020, that entire line should be stricken.
Okay, thank you. So the first sentence, the one that begins as of October 31, 2020, through the end of the sentence that ends with target should be stricken.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other corrections?
I do not.
With the exception of that correction, if I asked you the same questions in your testimony and data requests, would your responses be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. Now we'll call Clinton Stutler. Mr. Stutler, can you please state your name, business address, and position?
Yes, my name is Clint Stutler. My business address is 1 Riverside Plaza, Columbus, Ohio, 43215, and my position is the manager of natural gas and fuel oil procurement.
Did you cause to be filed into the record of this proceeding testimony and responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to those?
No, I don't.
If I were to ask you those same questions today, would your responses be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. Now I'll call Jason Stiegel. Mr. Stiegel, can you please state your name, business address, and position?
My name is Jason Stiegel. My business address is 1 Riverside Plaza, Columbus, Ohio, and my position is Manager of Regulatory Pricing and Analysis.
Thank you. And did you cause to be filed into the record of this proceeding responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to those responses?
No, I do not.
If I were to ask you those same questions today, would your responses be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. Now we'll call David Mell. Mr. Mell, you might need to, there you go. Mr. Mell, can you please state your name, business address, and position?
Yes, my name is David Mell. I'm at Big Sandy Power Plant. The address is 23,000 Highway 23, Louisa, Kentucky. I'm the energy production superintendent at Big Sandy Plant.
Thank you. And did you cause to be filed into the record of this proceeding responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to those responses?
No, I do not.
And if I were to ask you those same questions today, would your responses be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. And finally, we'll call Douglas Rosenberger. Mr. Rosenberger, can you please state your name, business address, and position?
Yes, my name is Douglas Rosenberger. My address is 8999 Energy Road, Moundsville, West Virginia, 26041. And my title is Plant Manager of Mitchell Plant.
And did you cause to be filed into the record of this proceeding responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to those responses?
No, I do not.
And if I were to ask you those same questions today, would your responses be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. At this time, I'll tender all Kentucky Power's witnesses for cross-examination.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Penny, cross-examination?
A few questions, Your Honor. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. First question I have is I will ask you to refer to the direct testimony of Mr. West, page 8, lines 1 through 7. Mr. West, just let me know when you get there.
And did you say that was page 8, lines
1 through 7, please.
1 through 7? Okay.
All right, could you please explain whether it makes any difference in the determination of a base fuel rate that there were no forced outages on any of the units? And if it does have an effect, explain how that would make a difference.
Sure. Just in general, if there is a forced outage during a month, it could cause an abnormality in the price of fuel. So when we look at picking a month like this in a 2-year case, we try to avoid a month when there was a forced outage.
Okay, and then subject to check, I think that Big Sandy 1 had 2 maintenance outages in February of 2020 that totaled about 8 days. Did those outages make any difference to the determination of the base fuel rate?
Can you direct me to the schedule you're looking at that has those outages?
You'll bear with me.
Sure. I remember seeing it, I don't have it right off the
I
top of
remember,
my head.
I have the same memory as you. I don't know exactly where it is, but how about it, why don't we just do that in response to a post-hearing data request? The question is that, did the 2 maintenance outage, the 2 Big Sandy 1 maintenance outages in February of 2020 have any effect on the determination of the base fuel rate?
I mean, from my perspective, it did not, but we can certainly answer that in a post-hearing data request.
Okay, that would be the first one, please. And I'll ask that you all please refer to Kentucky Power's response to staff's first request, item 4. And there it's stated that there were no written coal supply solicitations for the 6-month review period here. Subject to check, can you state when Kentucky Power last issued written requests for proposals for long-term fuel contracts?
This is Jeff Dial. I'm answering on behalf of Kentucky Power. The last RFP solicitation that we went out for was in August of 2019.
All right, thank you. And then could you also refer to the responses to staff's first request, item 14, please? And I think, just subject to check, this was also discussed in a previous case, and for references, if you want to go back and check later on, it's case number 2020-0004, and it's in response to staff's second set of data requests, and those were filed on April 6, 2020. But in that previous case, and subject to check, I think that Mr. West had said that the FERC accounts in the response, and there's a bunch of them listed in an attachment to this response, that the FERC accounts could not be reconciled with the company's monthly fuel adjustment clause filing because the majority of the accounts reflected in this attachment are not recovered through the FAC. Can you describe what accounts are recovered through the FAC?
This is Brian West responding for Kentucky Power. If it's possible to do that through a post-hearing data request, I can surely get a more comprehensive response at that time.
Okay, I think that's fair. I know that there's probably a long list. And then to follow up on that issue, if these codes aren't run through the FAC, could you confirm where they're recovered from, whether it's through the off-system sales clause or through other tariff items like that?
I can certainly do that.
All right.
Along in the post-hearing data request. Brian West responding again. I apologize, I forgot that the first couple of times.
No, that's okay. It's been a while since we've been in a hearing for these, so
Yes.
we're knocking the rust off. And then, could you explain whether transactions regarding Kentucky Power's capacity sales or purchases are reflected in any of the accounts that are listed here?
I'm confident that they are, but I can't point to the exact account right now.
I'll just include that in a post-hearing data request.
But thank you.
All right. Thank you. Please turn to Kentucky Power's response to item 30, the staff's first request, please. I think Mr. West is responsible witness for this, so just let me know when you're there.
I am.
All right, thank you. And then I think that for March 2019 and May 2019 and even May 2020, there is line loss that is listed as negative. Could you describe how line loss can be negative?
Sure. It has to do with, this is Brian West responding for Kentucky Power. It has to do with the fact that all of our accounts, our meters are not read at the same time each month. If they were read at the same time at the end of the month, then there wouldn't be a mismatch between, the internal load being equal to each individual hourly load summed, and all of the different readings that come in throughout the month on the reading cycles. So that kind of creates a little of a mismatch there. And it's possible if losses are low during a given month that because of that mismatch, it can cause that to go negative. And usually what would happen is it would be accompanied by a larger loss in subsequent months.
Okay, thank you. I'd wondered that when I was looking at that. I appreciate the explanation. And then turning the page to the confidential attachments to items 31 and 33, and I'll do my best to ask these questions in a way that we do not have to go into confidential session. And if we do, please, you can't physically throw something at me, but certainly counsel, state your objections and we'll go into confidential session. So for attachment 1 to item 31, can you just explain what the column headings mean? I mean, for example, does Mitchell coal consumption total tons mean Kentucky Power's share of total consumption, or is it the total station, including both Kentucky Power and Wheeling Power?
This is Jeff Dial. I'll be answering on behalf of Kentucky Power. Total tons, and actually, if you look at the heading, it says Kentucky Power's portion. That is only Kentucky Power's portion, not the total plant.
Okay, all right. And so if you were to find what Wheeling's consumption would be, that would make up the total, the sum total for the Mitchell plant?
This is Jeff Dial. I'm answering on behalf of Kentucky Power. That is correct.
Okay. And then can you confirm that the Mitchell units 1 and 2 are on regular maintenance cycles?
This is Doug Rosenberger responding on behalf of Kentucky Power. The answer is yes, we are on regular maintenance schedules for both units.
Okay. Thank you. And then, without discussing specific dates, can you explain what would be happening to Mitchell Unit 2 during its outage in 2022?
This is Doug Rosenberger responding on behalf of Kentucky Power. That is a larger outage cycle for us, and so we have a larger scope of major maintenance going on during that time. Do you want specific projects?
If you could provide those, I wouldn't mind. Just a few to get a feel for it.
Okay,
Your Honor, I'm sorry, Mr. Penny. Could we go into confidential session if we're going to discuss any of the specifics?
Oh, well,
There
I
are-
apologize. I think if you wouldn't mind, we'll just put that into a post-hearing data request.
No problem.
Because I maybe appreciate the time it'll give me the time to take a look at it. And so I'll include that. All right. Okay, so accounting for the outages in 2021 and 2022, it still appears that there's still a lot of variability in the amount of coal being consumed. Is that correct?
Sir, could you repeat your question? This is Jeff Dial.
This is, even accounting for the maintenance outages, there appears to be, can you confirm that there still appears to be a lot of variability in the amount of the coal that is being consumed?
I would confirm that as being true, yes. Jeff Dial, answering on behalf of Kentucky Power.
Okay, and then even accounting for maintenance outages and referring to attachment 1 to item 31, once again, I'll try not to get into confidential information. Is it correct to read this attachment as that when there is no outage otherwise reported that both units are running?
This is Doug Rosenberger for Kentucky Power again. Could you repeat that question? I want to make sure I understand what you
I
asked.
say, well, I guess if you account for maintenance outages when either Mitchell 1 or Mitchell 2 are not running, if you're looking at the total tons of coal consumed in attachment 1 to item number 31, if there are no maintenance outages, can we assume that both Mitchell units are running?
This is Doug Rosenberger responding on behalf of Kentucky Power. At times, even when there's no maintenance outages, we could be down not required
Okay.
time.
And so when we're looking at the variability of the coal consumption during the periods of times, that could be accounted for or is accounted for of whether one or both units are either ramped up or down?
This is Doug Rosenberger responding for Kentucky Power, and the answer is yes. It could be ramped up or down, or we could be down not required.
Okay. And then once again, just going to the variability of the coal consumption, the forecasted, what would be possible explanations to account for the variability in the forecasted coal consumption? Adjusting for planned maintenance.
This is Jeff Dial responding on behalf of Kentucky Power Company. The forecast is based on certain forward curves based on, what the locational marginal pricing is for each of the plants and in particular for Kentucky Power. So depending on what the forward curves for power is would affect the variability of the burn.
Okay, all right. And what would be the minimum coal consumption if both 1 and 2 were running at their minimum operation levels?
This is Jeff Dial responding on behalf of Kentucky Power. Could you put that in a post data request? I don't have that right in front of me.
Be fair-
Unless Doug, do you know?
I do not know I'm sorry, this is Doug Rosenberg responding to Kentucky Power. I do not know the exact numbers. The minimum loads can vary by temperature during the seasons.
Okay. That satisfies me. I don't need to put that into a post-hearing data request. All right, thank you. And so would it be, if there was a month with 0 consumption, would it be safe to assume that both units were idled?
This is Jeff Dial responding on behalf of Kentucky Power. That would be a good assumption.
Okay. And also, would it be safe to assume that when Mitchell 1 or 2 are down or not producing enough power to serve internal load, that the company makes up the difference in energy requirements for internal load by purchases on the market?
This is Jason Stiegel on behalf of Kentucky Power Company. Can you ask that question one more time, please?
All right, so when Kentucky Power makes power purchases to serve its internal load, from where does it get its power? I know that Kentucky Power is a member of PJM, so it's safe to assume you'd make purchases through PJM, but does Kentucky Power make other purchases then besides through PJM?
Kentucky Power still has this is Jason Stiegel answering on behalf of Kentucky Power Company. The company still has the unit power agreement with AEP Generating Company, or AEG, as well. But the primary source of primary source of the energy that it uses to serve customers comes from the unit power agreement, internal generation, or purchases from PJM.
Okay. And just once again, referring to that attachment 1 to item number 31, if the forecasted coal consumption were to come true, would that make it difficult for the company to abide by its coal contracts in regard to how much that the companies are required to take? And if so, how would the company manage that?
This is Jeff Dial on behalf of Kentucky Power Company responding. What we try to do is we try to layer in purchases over time. So we're trying to keep more of an open position going into the future, as well as trying to negotiate flexibility within the contracts where we have some right to go up and down. In the absence of those two things, what we would do is we would actually work with the vendors to try to reschedule tons into either later periods or to just reduce the tons.
Okay, bear with me. Your Honor, Commission staff is finished with its questioning.
Vice Chairman Chandler, questions?
I have no questions.
Dr. Matthews?
I have no questions.
Ms. Glass, any redirect examination?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. All right, this time, there are probably, 4 or 5 post-hearing data requests. How much time will it take you, Mr. Penny, to prepare those data requests?
I can have them issued tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Ms. Glass, if Mr. Penny can have his data requests to you by the close of business tomorrow, how much time will it take you or your client to prepare responses?
Well, Your Honor, I would say a few days. Brian, do you have a better idea of how long it might take to get those answers?
This is Brian West responding for Kentucky Power. It would take a few days, but is Monday suitable day?
Well, yeah, this is the 18th. I mean, if you, 1 week would be the 25th, that'd be seven days. You can have, well, how much time you think you need? Is that sufficient?
That's more than sufficient. Thank you, sir.
If you have if that becomes a challenge or you're not able to meet that deadline, if Ms. Glass or Mr. Overstreet would just file a short motion, you'll get an extension. Okay?
We'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, Ms. Glass, would you like to prepare a post-hearing brief, or are you satisfied the case can be submitted with what we have?
We're satisfied the case can be submitted with what we have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Glass, is there anything else you'd like to bring to the Commission's attention before we close out?
Not at this time. I do have a question, though, if we may be excused and sign off of the meeting, or whether we will need to stay.
Yes, there's no reason why your witnesses may be excused, and unless you have something else to bring to the attention of the Commission, or Mr. Penny has something, we'll adjourn the hearing.
I have nothing,
Mr.
Your
Penny?
Honor.
Okay, your witnesses are excused, and Kentucky Power's hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Is case number 2021-0054, East Kentucky Power Cooperative. At this time, would counsel for East Kentucky Power Cooperative please introduce himself or herself together with the witnesses who will present testimony this morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. David Sanford with law firm of Goss Sanford PLLC in Lexington on behalf of East Kentucky Power Cooperative, Inc. With me today are Mr. Craig Johnson, Ms. Julie Tucker, Mr. Mark Horn, Mr. Isaac Scott, and Ms. Michelle Carpenter.
Thank you. And for staff?
Your Honor, Jeb Penny on behalf of the Public Service Commission, and accompanied by other members of staff, John Rogness, Mike Foley, and Sarah Jankowski.
It looks like, at least it says here, that public notice has been given and filed in the record. Is that correct, Mr. Sanford?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe it was filed last Thursday or Friday.
Thank you. And Mr. Sanford, do you have, or are there outstanding confidentiality motions? I assume there probably are.
I believe that there may be one, Your Honor, maybe two, but that would be it.
Okay. Are there any other motions that are outstanding or have been made and not ruled on?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, this time we'll seek comment from any member of the public who desires to make a comment. Should anyone from the public like to provide the Commission with public comment, instructions to call in are located on our website, which is psc.ky.gov. The phone lines will remain open for several minutes at the start of this hearing and close if there are no callers or after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Should you call in, please state your name and address for the record before making your statement, and please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If there is more than one caller, please be respectful and allow one person to make a statement at a time. It should be noted that comments may always be submitted on the PSC's website at psc.ky.gov. Mr. Penny, I assume you're manning the phone.
Yeah, here I am. Yeah.
Okay. We'll wait a minute or so to see if anyone would like to make a comment.
This is Jeb Penny with the Public Service Commission. Is anybody online to speak to East Kentucky Power Cooperative's fuel adjustment clause? Nobody there?
I don't think we've ever had a public comment on one of these cases, and one wonders what they would say if if they chose to call in. Let's wait a minute and see if,
All right. In fact, if we're getting feedback, I'll go talk to Jim for a second.
while we're waiting, we're getting some kind of feedback, so we'll take a second to see if we can correct the problem.
Thank you.
Fixed it? Okay. All right, the feedback problem, I'm not sure it has been fixed.
I think we'll address it from the back room.
Okay, all right. No one has attempted to call in, is that correct?
Nobody has, and I'll disconnect the phone for the
Okay,
time being.
thank you. All right, there being no, having been no public comment, Mr. Sanford, at this time, we can swear in your witnesses. If all of East Kentucky Power's witnesses would please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Mr. Sanford, you may ask and go through the direct of each of your witnesses if you choose to do so, and then allow Mr. Penny and others to cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Start with Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, could you please give your full name, your title, and your business address for the record, please?
Yes, Craig Johnson. I'm Senior Vice President of Power Production. Address is 4775 Lexington Road, Winchester, Kentucky, 40391.
And did you cause certain responses to data requests to be filed in the record of this case?
I did.
Do you have any changes or corrections to those responses?
I do not.
If I were to ask you the same questions today, would your answers be identical?
Yes, they would.
Your desire and intent to incorporate those responses into the record of this hearing?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Tucker, would you please state your full name, your title, and business address for the record, please?
So Julia Tucker, Director of Power Supply with East Kentucky Power Cooperative, 4775 Lexington Road, Winchester, Kentucky, 40391.
And did you cause certain testimony and responses to data requests to be filed in the record of this proceeding?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any changes or corrections to those data requests or testimony?
No, I do not.
If I were to ask you the same questions, would your answers be identical?
Yes.
And is it your desire and intent to incorporate your testimony and responses to data requests in the record of this hearing?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Horn, let me ask you to please state your full name for the record, your title, and your business address.
Manager, Fuel and Emissions at East Kentucky Power Cooperative, located at 4775 Lexington Road in Winchester, Kentucky.
Did you call certain testimony and responses to data requests to be filed in the record of this proceeding?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections, changes, or edits to that testimony or data request responses?
No, I do not.
If I were to ask you the same questions today, would your answers be identical?
Yes.
Is it your desire and intent to incorporate your testimony and the responses to data requests into the record of this hearing?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, would you please state your full name, your title, and business address?
Yes, I'm Isaac Scott. I'm the pricing manager at East Kentucky Power. My business address is 4775 Lexington Road, Winchester, Kentucky.
And did you cause any responses to data requests to be filed in the record of this case?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any changes or edits or corrections to those data request responses?
And no, I do not.
If I were to ask you the same questions today, would your answers be identical?
Yes, they would.
And is it your desire and intent to have your responses to data requests to be included within the administrative record of this proceeding?
Yes, please.
Ms. Carpenter, if I could ask you to please state your name, title, and business address.
Michelle Carpenter. I'm the controller at East Kentucky Power Cooperative, Our business address is 4775 Lexington Road, Winchester, Kentucky.
And did you cause certain responses to data requests to be filed in the record of this proceeding?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any edits, changes, or corrections to those responses?
I do not.
If I were to ask you the same questions, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Is it your desire and intent to have those responses incorporated into the record of today's hearing?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that, I believe all the witnesses are qualified and passed for cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. Penny, I may have neglected to ask you on the record to identify yourself.
I think you got me.
Did I?
I
I'm
guess
not
so.
sure we got on the feedback issue. I may have thought maybe I neglected to do that. Mr. Penny, cross-examination?
A few questions, Your Honor. Thank you. Good morning to all the good people from East Kentucky Power. My first question, I would ask for you to refer to the East Kentucky Power's response to staff's first request, item 2. And I'll give you all a second to get there, but I'll tell you what I'm asking about. I'm looking at the Alliance Coal contracts. We have contract number 540, 542, and 838. And, could you explain why there is a cost per ton difference between those long-term contracts? Two of the contracts at the same price, but one of them has a different price to it.
Mark Warren of East Kentucky Power responding. That would be mainly due to the difference in the time period when the contract was executed.
Okay. And then could you please refer to the public attachments to East Kentucky Power's responses to staff's first request for information, items 4A and 4B. And I'm going to do my best to ask questions that will not require us to go into confidential session. And Mr. Sanford, please let me know if I'm starting to dance that way. Okay, so these are the fuel evaluation for Gilbert and Spurlock number 4, and I'm going to be asking you about the columns on the top. Specifically, in one column, there's a delivery cost, which is stated in dollars per ton and in dollars per MMBTU. And then there's an evaluated cost, which is also shows dollars per ton and dollar per MMBTU. Now, can you explain to me how East Kentucky Power arrives at the delivery cost for dollar per MMBTU?
Mark Warren of East Kentucky Power responding. Yes, the delivery cost is simply the cost of the coal plus the cost of transportation of that coal. It's converted to dollars or cents per million BTU based on the heat content of that coal.
Okay. And then can you explain what the evaluated cost is and how that is calculated?
Yes, Mark Warren, East Kentucky Power responding. It would be the same two components of the fuel cost itself, plus the transportation, plus all other measurable parameters such as the quality of coal, which would include the heat content, the moisture content, the sulfur and the ash, and those type of parameters. Any quantitative parameter that can be measured goes into the evaluation.
And I'm going on memory, but I think that does East Kentucky Power have a proprietary system to make that evaluation?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. And then, so that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm. It's been a while since we've had you all on the stand. And so that program or that the system takes into account multiple variables?
Yes, all the variables that we can put a number to, it's quantifiable, and the decision is made on the evaluated basis.
Okay, all right. And then so are there situations where East Kentucky Power may not elect to choose the lowest evaluated cost of coal?
Mark Horner, East Kentucky Power responding. Yes, that is possible, especially in terms of the need or desire for supplier diversification.
Okay, and then are there other considerations? I mean, I think that sometimes I've read that the utilities will conduct due diligence with regard to certain suppliers, and so what would go into the due diligence in inspections on that?
Well, there's two sides of the due diligence. Would be the financial due diligence. We look at their financial wherewithal. And then the physical due diligence, we look at their permits, reserves, and mining plan.
Okay, all right. And so and based upon the due diligence, that even though there might be a lowest evaluated cost, there might be other reasons for not taking that.
That is correct, yes. Or even a factor of, past performance issue that would be evaluated as well.
Okay, all right. I appreciate the response. And so at the bottom of these pages, there's also says the delivery cost considers the impact of the $2 per ton Kentucky clean coal tax credit. Could you please explain just briefly what that credit is?
Yeah, that's for the qualified units, the Spurlock 3 and 4 that are clean coal units. And those $2 are eliminated from the evaluation process.
Okay, so did you say Spurlock 3 and 4?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Gilbert unit number 3 and Spurlock unit number 4 at Spurlock Power Station.
Okay.
Yeah, they're getting a credit for those $2 that East Kentucky would save.
Okay, and then do you have to burn a different kind of coal in those units because of the equipment that's installed?
Well, we still buy the lowest evaluated fuel for the units, and that coal could come from a variety of states from different coal basins.
Okay, I was just wondering, is it a different blend than, say, the other units?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It has a more forgiving spec than 1 and 2 does.
Okay,
More flexibility.
all right. All right, then could you refer to East Kentucky Power's response to staff's second request, item 1? I'll give you all a second to get there. Then, actually, I may be making the references to the wrong request, but as I recall, that there was some either testimony or discussion about the PJM seams problems created by the carbon policies of the RGGI states and how EKPC is dealing with those problems. Can you elaborate a little bit on the discussions that are taking place to address those issues?
Julia Tucker, East Kentucky Power responding. We're working through the PJM members system through the various committees to get our input into that. We don't believe it's correct to be penalized for regulations that are being imposed in other states that are not required within Kentucky. And so far, the PJM response has been in support of that view.
Okay. And forgive me if I've asked these questions in previous proceedings before, but as I said, Mr. Horn, it's been a while, so we're knocking the rust off, and I need to be reminded. But correct me if I'm wrong, EKPC participates in PJM as an FRR, or fixed resource requirement. Is that capacity market? Is that correct?
No, sir. This is Julie Tucker responding for East Kentucky. We participate in the base residual auction, the BRA.
Okay. I meant to,
We initially-
yes, I meant to reverse those. I apologize. But proceed.
When we initially joined, we were participating in the FRR fixed requirements.
Okay. And then if you could refer to the East Kentucky Power's response to the second request, item number 4. And then if you could explain whether the extreme cold events that occurred in Texas disrupted any delivery of gas to the Smith or Bluegrass stations?
Mark Hornady, Kentucky Power responding, no, there were no disruptions in February to any of our gas assets.
All right, and thank you for responding, even though it's outside of the review period. I do appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right, Your Honor, Commission staff has no further questions for East Kentucky Power.
Vice Chairman Chandler, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It may be for Ms. Tucker. Good morning. I'd like to talk about a couple questions about EKPC's participation in the ARR and FTR constructs. During the review, the 2-year review period, was East Kentucky allocated ARR or auction revenue rights?
Julia Tucker, East Kentucky responding, yes, sir.
Okay, and Ms. Tucker, I think you'll probably be the respondent on most of these, so I'll ask them directly to you to sort of make it go a little faster so you don't have to identify each time. As a general matter, did East Kentucky self-schedule, reconfigure, or retain those ARRs throughout the review period?
Yes, sir. In the initial year of the review period, we may have scheduled some of the ARRs onto the Spurlock to East Kentucky load path. I would have to go back and double check. Over the past 2 years, we have not scheduled the ARRs, and we have converted them into the monetary value.
Okay. And then do you all also participate in any of the long-term FDR auctions?
Yes, sir. We participate. We have not cleared any of those auctions for the past, I believe, 2 years. But we do have a few still remaining from earlier auctions.
All right. And so let me ask you this way. So other than monetizing, we'll call it, other than sort of monetizing your ARRs that were allocated to you based on your all's load position, during the 2-year review period, did East Kentucky expend any additional amounts on FTRs to act as a hedge or for any other purposes?
I would have to go back to look to see if any FTRs were bought. We do participate in the monthly auctions, and we do at times purchase FTRs for hedges from our generation to our load when there are known outages that could create a risk for the exposure.
Okay. So if I asked, for instance, what the amount spent, right, the gross cost for getting stuff that was allocated, the ARRs that are just allocated to EKPC, but additional money spent by East Kentucky in the FTR markets, and then that amount, as compared to the total cost of fuel during the 2-year period, right, or to understand the magnitude, that's information you all could provide in a post-hearing data request?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Tucker. Those are all the questions I have, Chairman.
Dr. Matthews, questions?
I don't have any questions, sir.
Mr. Sanford, any redirect examination?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Is there any reason why these witnesses cannot now be excused?
There's not. We just need to know about the timing of the post-hearing.
Okay. The witnesses, Mr. Sanford, may be excused, but should remain just for a second till we see
Chairman?
how long it would take to answer the post-hearing data. Yes,
Hey, Chairman, Mr. Sanford may be able to make it out, but I think that the actual microphone next to you may be on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess, yeah, my microphone was off.
Okay.
All right, your witnesses, Mr. Sanford, may be excused but should remain for a second in order to determine how long it would take, assuming that Mr. Penny can have one post-hearing data request out by what, tomorrow or so? How long it would take you or your client to respond?
I'm looking for nods and agreement, but I would think that we could probably do that within about a week, Your Honor.
Okay. The what, 25th? If you need more time, you can ask for it or just file a two-sentence motion or something, but that would give you a week. But if you'd like more time, you're certainly welcome to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Sanford, would you like to file a brief in support of East Kentucky Power?
I don't believe that that will be necessary, Your Honor.
Is there anything else you'd like to bring to the attention of the commission at this time, Mr. Sanford? If not, we will adjourn the hearing.
No, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Penny, anything you'd like to bring to the attention of the commission?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. In that case, this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me go grab Jim so we can dial back in without hopefully the feedback.
Okay, we had a feedback issue again to try to take care of. So we're now back on the record in case number 2021-00055, Kentucky Utilities, and case number 2021-00056, Louisville Gas and Electric Company. At this time, would counsel for Kentucky Utilities and Louisville Gas and Electric please identify herself along with the witnesses who will be testifying on behalf of the companies today.
Good morning, Your Honor. This is Allison Sturgeon. I'm in-house counsel with LG&E and KU, 220 West Main Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40202. Today, I'm testifying on behalf of the companies. We have Chuck Schramm, Stuart Wilson, Michael Drake, Delbert Villager, and Andrea Fackler.
Okay. And on behalf of commission staff?
Your Honor, Jeb Penny, and also with commission staff, we have John Rogness, Sarah Jankowski, and Mike Foley.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Sturgeon, has public notice been given, and has it been filed?
Yes, Your Honor. We filed proof of our affidavit of publication last night. There was one newspaper on the KU side that did not timely file, but that did file on Saturday, or did publish on Saturday. And so everyone has has now completed publication. We did file a petition for a deviation from the requirements, and that is pending with the commission.
Okay, thank you. I suspect you have one or more confidentiality motions, would that be correct, that have not been ruled on?
That is correct, Your Honor. We have one for each company. LG has one, KU has one as well.
Okay, thank you. Right, if, I guess when we get started, as I've mentioned in previous hearings, Ms. Sturgeon, if we get into testimony, there's a question or the possibility that an answer might compromise the company's position on confidentiality, just let us know and we'll go into confidential session or take care of it with a post-hearing data request or something, okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's now time for the possible comments by members of the public to this proceeding. Should anyone from the public like to provide the commission with public comment, instructions to call in are located on our website, psc.ky.gov. The phone lines will remain open for several minutes at the start of this hearing and close if there are no callers or after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Should you call in, please state your name and address for the record before making your statement, and please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If there is more than one caller, please be respectful and allow one person to make a statement at a time. It should be noted that comments may always be submitted on the PSC's website at psc.ky.gov. All right, Mr. Penny, you're manning the phone lines for a minute or so to see if anyone would like to call in.
This is Jeb Penny with the Public Service Commission. Is anybody on the line that would like to comment on the fuel adjustment clause cases for either Kentucky Utilities or Louisville Gas and Electric Company?
Okay, it looks like no one intends to call in and provide a public comment. So, Ms. Sturgeon, if each of your witnesses would raise their right hands, we will swear all in at the same time. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Sturgeon, you may commence a direct examination of your witnesses one at a time, and then Mr. Penny and commissioners may cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Schramm, would you state your name, title, and business address?
My name is Charles Schramm. I'm Director of Power Supply for LG&E and KU Services. My business address is 220 West Main Street, Louisville, Kentucky 40202.
And did you cause to be filed pre-filed testimony and data responses in these proceedings?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any corrections to any of your responses?
Yes, I do. In my testimony on page 4, line 13, the number 50,000 MMBTU per day should be 65,000 MMBTU per day. And on line 15, again on page 4 of my testimony, the year 2016 should read 2018, and the year 2018 should read 2020.
Subject to those two corrections, if I were to ask you those same questions today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes, they would.
Okay. Mr. Wilson, will you state your name, title, and business address, please?
Sure, my name is Stuart Wilson. I'm the Director of Energy Planning, Analysis, and Forecasting for LG&E and KU Services Company. My business address is 220 West Main Street, Louisville, Kentucky 40202.
And did you also cause to be filed testimony and data responses in these two proceedings?
Yes.
And if I were to ask you those same questions today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes.
Mr. Drake, would you state your name, title, and business address, please?
Michael Drake, Director Generation Services, located at 220 West Main Street, Louisville, Kentucky.
Mr. Drake, did you cause to be filed data responses in these two proceedings?
I did.
And if I were to ask you those same questions today, would your answers remain the same?
They would.
Mr. Billiter, will you state your name, title, and business address, please?
Delbert Billiter. My title is Manager of LG&E and KU Fuels. My address is 220 West Main Street, Louisville, Kentucky. 40202.
And did you cause to be filed with both testimony and data responses in these proceedings?
Yes,
And if I were to ask you those same questions today, would your answers remain the same?
yes, they would.
And finally, Ms. Fackler, would you state your name, title, and business address, please? Yes, Andrea Fackler. My title is Manager of Revenue Requirement Cost of Service. And I work for LG&E and KU Services Company, business address 220 West Main Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40202. And did you cause to be filed data responses in these proceedings? Yes. And if I were to ask you those same questions today, would your answers remain the same? Yes. Your Honor, eyewitnesses are available for cross-examination.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Mr. Penny?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you. The first question I have, I'll refer to the direct testimony of Mr. Schramm, pages 4 to 5. Mr. Schramm, let me know when you're there.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. And then in that, you discuss the reduction of natural gas deliveries. Could you explain in greater detail about the nature of the reductions in these deliveries during that period of time? Were the delivery failures as a result of the suppliers not getting gas into the pipelines, or the inability of the pipelines to actually transport the gas to the city gate?
Yes, the suppliers claimed they had issues actually getting gas supply to the pipeline. We had no issues with pipeline transport services whatsoever during that period. We are happy to report that our claims for liquidated damages have been addressed, and we have fully received all of the requested liquidated damages from the applicable counterparties.
So, can you briefly describe what liquidated damages the utility incurred as a result of the suppliers not getting the gas to the pipelines?
Yes, so this was gas purchased on a forward basis, some of which was purchased many months before. I'm going to say generally at prices that were well below $3 per MMBTU. The replacement gas the utilities purchased to replace the undelivered gas were at much higher prices during this mid-February period during the crisis in Texas. And some of those purchases were in the range of $15 per MMBTU. So the difference between our forward purchase price and any replacement gas that was purchased by the utilities constituted our liquidated damages.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I'll ask you all to please refer to the confidential attachments to the responses to staff's first request, item 4A and B. I asked similar questions of East Kentucky Power, and I'll do my best not to discuss confidential information. And please, Ms. Sturgeon, speak up if you think I'm getting a little too close. And let me know when you all are there. Looks like maybe everybody's there.
We're ready.
Okay. So I'm only going to be asking about the columns at the top. When you're looking at that, you'll have a delivered dollar per MMBTU, and then you'll have an evaluated dollar of MMBTU. Can you explain to me how KU and LG&E arrives at the delivered cost that is listed there?
Delbert Biller responding. It's the delivered price per MMBTU listed in the table is the price of the coal FOB delivery point offered by the supplier, and then any associated delivery costs that we would have to get it to the power station.
Okay. And then, so can you explain to me the evaluated price there? How do the utilities reach that?
Delbert Billiter responding. The evaluated price is the delivered price less the estimated coal severance tax that the supplier would incur on the coal sales.
Okay. And are there any other factors that go into determining the evaluated cost versus the delivered cost?
Delbert Billiter responding. No, there isn't.
Okay. And then so are there situations in which KU and LG&E would not elect to choose a lower cost coal, whether it's the delivery cost or the evaluated cost?
Delbert Miller responding. Yes, there could be instances, depending on the circumstances. Some of those might be coal quality. Some of those might be during our due diligence, we find items that we feel prevents the supplier from being able to deliver what they've offered, and there could be others.
Okay. All right, and then for some of these responses, it mentions that the delivered prices do not include certain fixed costs like barge fleeting, rail car maintenance, NS capacity fee, the like of that. Could you elaborate a little more on what these fixed costs that are excluded are?
Delbert Miller responding. Yeah, we typically do not include the costs that affect each of the offers in the same way. That may go into the total cost of coal consumed at the unit. Those might include on the barge side any fleeting and switching, at the plant. It could also include taxes. On the rail side, some of those costs would include lease costs for rail cars, maintenance on rail cars, fixed capacity costs that we might have with the railroad.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then keeping in the same confidential vein, but not trying to disclose any confidential information, please turn to the attachment to response to Commission Staff's first request, number 32. I think it's a 2-page attachment. And could you explain for the coal burning units whether the shaded areas that last for 2 or 3 more weeks indicate that the units will not only be offline but also not consuming any coal?
Stuart Wilson responding. That's correct. That attachment contains our maintenance schedule, and if the units are indicated as being out, they will not be consuming coal.
Okay, and then could you explain if there are any type of maintenance outages that may only require the unit to be ramped down to its minimum level but not shut down?
Stuart Wilson responding. There are no maintenance outages that are performed at least on this sheet, there are no maintenance outages that are performed at partial output levels.
Okay. And so could I all ask that you all turn to the responses to staff's second request, item 3. And then the first bullet point. And so where you discuss experiencing transmission and congestion constraints from midnight to morning hours when demand would appear to be at its lowest level. And does that appear to be, it appears counterintuitive to me that that's when you would have transmission and congestion constraints. So can you explain whether the response referencing the transmission system means a unified system encompassing both KU and LG&E, or are the systems separate in that response?
Charles Schramm responding. That description addresses a unified transmission system for both LG&E and KU. And what I would also add is that we don't understand all of the ongoing hour-to-hour grid conditions. There could be maintenance going on in the system. There could be many things that are happening in the transmission system that could cause something like this, even during off-peak hours, that could affect congestion and other constraints.
Okay, and then so on that one, it says there was a purchase 300 megawatts of energy. From where was that purchased?
It was likely purchased from one of the pools, either PJM or MISO. Be happy to follow up and a posterior data response to indicate exactly where that was purchased from.
That's not necessary, but thank you. And so, are there constraints that would preclude the intercompany transactions between KU and LG&E?
Charles Schramm responding, we generally would not believe that to be an issue between the two companies. However, at any points within the company's transmission system, it's possible there could be something going on. But we don't have that level of insight into the transmission system within power supply, within the marketing function.
So when you say you don't have that level of information, are you referring to the transmission system writ large, or just the company's transmission system?
Well, Charles Schramm responding, transmission really at large, only publicly information is available to us.
Okay.
But I think specifically we're talking about the company system in this case.
Okay. So with regard to the company systems, do you have more information than otherwise available?
Charles Schramm responding, I do not, my team does not within the power supply group because we are considered a marketing function.
Okay.
So we can only see publicly available transmission information that's posted by the company or by others.
Okay. Your Honor, staff has no further questions.
Vice Chairman Chandler, questions?
I have no questions.
Dr. Matthews?
I have no questions.
Ms. Sturgeon, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right. I don't think there were any post-hearing data requests, is that correct?
There were none.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sturgeon, would you like to file a brief or have the opportunity to file a brief at the end of this proceeding?
No, Your Honor, I don't think a brief would be required.
Okay. At this time then, Ms. Sturgeon, the witnesses for Kentucky Utilities and Louisville Gas and Electric may be excused, and unless you have something additional to bring before the commission at this time, we'll adjourn the hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, this hearing is now adjourned, and we'll take a 15-minute recess and come back at 11:15 for Duke Energy Kentucky and Big Rivers. Thank you. Okay, we are now back on the record, and the next case is 2021-00057, Duke Energy Kentucky. At this time, will counsel for Duke Energy Kentucky please identify himself and the witnesses who are expected to testify on behalf of the company this morning.
Thank you, Your Honor. On behalf of Duke Energy Kentucky, I am Rocco D'Ascenzo, Deputy General Counsel, 139 East 4th Street, Cincinnati, Ohio. Representing the company with me today are Mr. Brett Phipps, Mr. John Swez, and Ms. Liddy Miller.
Okay. And for staff?
Jeb Penny on behalf of the commission and commission staff accompanying me today are Mike Foley, Sarah Jankowski, and John Rognus.
Thank you. Mr. D'Ascenzo, has public notice been given and filed into the record?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are there any outstanding motions, Mr. D'Ascenzo?
Your Honor, I believe we do have a motion for confidential treatment that remains pending.
Thank you. If at any time during the testimony, Mr. D'Ascenzo, it appears to you that a question or an answer may get close to basically compromising your client's position on confidentiality, please let us know and we'll go into confidential session or try to take care of the matter with a post-hearing data request, okay?
Certainly, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, this time we'll see if any member of the public would like to comment. Should anyone from the public like to provide the commission with public comment, instructions to call in are located on our website, psc.ky.gov. The phone lines will remain open for several minutes at the start of this hearing and close if there are no callers or after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Should you call in, please state your name and address for the record before making your statement, and please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If there is more than one caller, please be respectful and allow one person to make a statement at a time. It should be noted that comments may always be submitted to the Public Service Commission on the PSC's website at psc.ky.gov. Mr. Penny, will you please check the telephone line to see if anyone is available who would like to make a public comment?
This is Jeb Penny with the Public Service Commission. Is there anybody online that would like to make a public comment regarding Duke Kentucky's Fuel Adjustment Clause case? I hear no response, Your Honor.
There does not appear to be anyone present, but let's wait 30 seconds to a minute to see if anyone would like to call in. I don't know if you were listening, Mr. D'Ascenzo, as I guess our first hearing this morning when I said, well, I don't remember anyone ever calling in for a public comment. And if they did, I had no idea what they would say. Mr. Penny told me that in his career here that he knows that happened one time, and a caller came in, called, and his comment was, "I'm against it," and hung up. So we'll see. Mr. Penny, no one is on the phone, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, we'll then, there being no public comment, we'll proceed with the evidence. Would the witnesses for Duke Energy Kentucky please raise your right hands? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Look, we may have a feedback issue.
I believe that it's on there, and they all had their mics
Okay,
off while
all right.
they were being sworn.
All right, Mr. D'Ascenzo, you may conduct direct examination of each of your witnesses.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll start with Ms. Miller. Ms. Miller, would you please state your name, business address, and position with the company for the record, please?
My name is Libby Miller. My position is lead analyst in the Rates and Regulatory Strategy Department for Ohio and Kentucky. My address is 139 East 4th Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45202.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And did you cause to file direct testimony and responses to data requests in this proceeding?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any changes or corrections to either of those?
No, I do not.
And if you were to be asked those same questions then today, would your responses be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Mister, would you please state your name, business address, and position with the company for the record?
Yes, my name is Brett Fitz. I'm the Managing Director of Fuel Procurement. My business address is 526 South Church Street, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Phipps. And did you cause to file direct testimony and responses to data requests in this proceeding?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any changes or corrections?
I do not.
And if you were to be asked those same questions today, your responses would be the same?
Yes, they will.
Thank you. Mr. Suez, would you please state your name, business address, and position with the company for the record?
Yes, my name is John Suez. My position, Managing Director of Trading and Dispatch. My address is 526 South Church Street, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202.
And Mr. Suez, are you adopting the direct testimony and data requests of Mr. Brad Daniel for this proceeding?
Yes, I am.
And Mr. Suez, did you yourself file direct testimony and responses to data requests in this proceeding?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any changes or corrections to either your direct testimony, the data responses you provided, or that of Mr. Daniel?
I do have one correction to my direct testimony. On page 7, line number 1, the word non should be inserted between the letter A, or the word A, excuse me, and the word self. So this sentence should read, however, comma, a non-self-supply entity.
Do you have any further changes or corrections?
I do not.
And so if you were to be asked the same questions today, would your responses then be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you, Mr. Suez. Your Honor, the witnesses are available for cross-examination.
Mr. Penny, cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Would you all please refer to Duke's response to staff's first request, item 4. And the response to that indicates that Duke did not enter into any long-term coal contracts for the period under review, or at least issue any written solicitations for coal contracts. Is that correct?
Brett Fitz responding on behalf of Duke Energy. That is correct.
Okay, and then subject to check, can you state when Duke last issued written RFPs or requests for proposals for long-term fuel contracts?
Yes, again, Brett Fitz responding on behalf of Duke Energy. There's going to be two dates. We have recently went out in February of 2021 for a long-term contract. We're in the process of finalizing those decisions. Before that, the previous one was in October of 2019.
All right, thank you. And then if you would please turn to the responses to staff's first request, item 15, attachment 1. I think Mr. Daniel was the responding witness, so this might be to Mr. Suez. But with regard to the East Bend 2's maintenance outage on May, it's the one at the very top of the page. Can you explain what is, actually that's not, what is entailed to clean scrubbers and whether the unit was shut down for the entire month of May?
Johnson's responding. The unit was actually shut down from May 14th through May 24th. So it was not the entire portion of May.
Okay. And do you know, was any coal consumed during that period? I mean, during the month of May? For East Bend 2?
Johnson was responding. May of 2020 was obviously during the earlier parts of the COVID pandemic. And during part of that time, I don't know if it was the entire month of May, but East Bend was offline on reserve shutdown due to the low demand for approximately 57 days. I do believe that did go into some of the month of May. I would have to check and see if it was the entire month that the offline on reserve shutdown, however.
Well, subject to check, I believe that the subsequent filing, FAC filing made with the PSC for June, that was filed in June 2020 for the May 2020 month, showed that no coal was consumed during May. And so I guess it would be safe to presume that if no coal was burnt, then during the month of May, nothing was running at East Bend.
Yeah, Johnson was responding, so that would be correct. Then the unit was on reserve shutdown for the period May 1st through May 14th, and then May 24th through the end of the month.
Okay. And then if you could turn to the next response, the response to staff first request, item 16. Then looking at the capacity factor there for May 2020, can you explain how a net capacity factor can be negative?
John Swaz responding. A negative net capacity factor occurs when the unit doesn't run during that time period, and at the same time, there are auxiliary systems utilized to that consume energy during that time period. For instance, you might have computers that are running, lights that are on, air conditioning, things like that consume energy, and you end up with a negative capacity factor if you look at the net capacity factor.
Okay. All right. And then if you could turn to item number 17, and forgive me if you've explained this to commission staff before, but sometimes need reminding, but there discusses Duke Energy Kentucky implementing remote startup capability to Woodsdale Station. Could you explain what remote starting means?
Yes, John Swaz responding. So remote start is the ability to start, in this case, a Woodsdale unit, start a combustion turbine from a remote location. So from our dispatch facility, we can actually turn the Woodsdale units on without actually personnel being at the site. However, once those generators are turned on, then personnel then would come out to the site.
Okay, and so does that allow, I guess let me ask this question. So are personnel, if Woodsdale's not running and not necessarily anticipated to run, are there personnel on site at the time?
So the personnel, Johnson was responding, excuse me. So typically Woodsdale is staffed approximately 16 hours a day, Monday through Friday. However, the remote start allows us to offer the unit to PJM with a very fast startup time, approximately 10 minutes during the non-staffed hours. When the staffing is at the site, that's 16 hours a day, 5 days a week, the unit is still available for PJM, of course. But if we received a dispatch during that time, we would call the station and the station would turn it on as a normal process.
Okay, and would that turn up time still be the roughly 10 minutes that there is with remote start?
Johns was responding, that's correct. Same, it would take the same amount of time to start the units.
Okay. And then if you could please turn to the response to item 23 for the staff's first request, please. I think that Ms. Miller might be the responsible witness for this, but the attachment shows that only oil is being burned at the Woodsdale units. So can you explain why no gas was burned during March of 2020 and whether Duke will burn either fuel depending on its cost?
I'll let John Swez answer for whether Woodsdale will burn fuel or oil, or fuel, oil, or.
So John was responding. So yes, Woodsdale can consume either fuel, oil, or natural gas. And aside from testing that might require one of the fuels, the normal process would be to burn the lower cost fuel. And of course, that's typically natural gas, but not necessarily always. But if there was a month in which no fuel oil was consumed or no gas was consumed, the unit was likely on economic shutdown the entire time.
Okay, so with regard to March 2020, it shows that no natural gas was burned, but approximately $200,000 of oil was burned. What would that indicate?
John was responding. I would have to go back and look and see what was specifically occurring during March of 2020. But like I mentioned, testing, typically if oil is consumed, it's one of two reasons, testing or the fact that oil was cheaper than gas. And I'm aware that during March of 2020, oil was not cheaper than gas. So I would have to, well, I don't want to hazard a guess, but I'd have to, subject to check, I'd have to go back and see if we did testing during that time, because it's my expectation that the oil was more expensive than gas at that period.
All right, if you don't mind, I'll ask for that post-hearing data request. All right, and if you could please turn to the confidential attachments to the response to items 30 and 32, and Mr. DeCenzo, I will do my best not to dance up on any confidential information, and if I do, please let me know if you're getting uncomfortable, and we'll get to that. So on this, matching up the maintenance outage schedules in item 32 with the fuel consumption forecasts that are listed in item 30, the gaps in fuel consumption don't seem to correspond with the proposed maintenance schedule. And then and this might be in response to a post-hearing data request if you do not have answers or if it's something that would require a confidential response. But for item 30 on page 1 of 2, can you explain what is happening in April of 2021?
Responding. It looks like we originally had an outage in the spring, mainly April. And if you look at the outage schedule in 32, it has the outage moved to the fall. So it looks like we have a disconnect between the one version has the outage in the spring, the forecast, and the other has an outage in the fall.
Okay. And then if you're to look at page 2 of 2 for the attachment to 30, we're looking at the gas units that they're not consuming gas. Are they not consuming gas because they're not running, or are they consuming fuel oil?
It's my understanding that this is for Woodsdale, and it's mainly, they will usually run during peak times, which would be the winter and the summer. That's my understanding why there is not gas running for every month of the year.
Okay. And so generally, with the Woodsdale units, even during the summer months when the PJM generally experiences its peaks, are the Woodsdale units, are their costs below or above, generally above the projected LMP or PJM prices?
This is Libby Miller. I'm going to let John Suez, who is more familiar with the PJM pricing, to see if he can respond on this one.
Yeah, John was responding. The Woodsdale units are typically dispatched on average an annual capacity factor somewhere in less than 5%. However, some summer months will see the capacity factors and winter months potentially approach upwards of close to 10%. So the units are dispatched in higher market price periods, and typically that dispatch is on natural gas.
All right, then, if y'all would please turn to the testimony of Ms. Miller, pages 4 to 5.
I'm there.
Okay. And then could you please explain whether the March 2020 fuel rate of, I guess it's $0.025401 is equal to the average fuel rate over the 24-month period? And if not, can you explain how the two relate? I apologize for interrupting you.
Oh, sure. Libby Miller responding. The new proposed rate is not the exact rate of any month in the 2-year period. The most representative rate that we saw was in March of 2020. And in my analysis, I looked at over the last 2-year period, comparing the base fuel rate compared to what actually came through in the FAC during that 24-month period. And in 18 of the 24 months, there was a charge, meaning that the base fuel rate was lower than the cost that actually came through. And looking at this, and also looking at the forecast and the most recent 6-month period here, from November 2020 to April 21, and I know that's not in the period that we wanted to see what came through, we determined, we came to the conclusion that it was a prudent decision to pick the rate that we did, which is a little bit higher than the base fuel rate that we have now.
Okay. And as a post-hearing data request, I would like to, or the commission staff would like to see the work papers that show the historical and projected fuel calculations that supported this choice. So we'll address that through a post-hearing data request. Then, Ms. Miller, continuing it on with your direct testimony, page 4, lines 19 through 22, and page 5, lines 1 through 2. In response at the bottom of page 4 and finishing at on the top of page 5, you say that you chose to use historical costs to determine the proposed increased base fuel rate because that will limit monthly FAC rate volatility. Can you explain how historical rates can limit future volatility?
Libby Miller responding. While there's always going to be some volatility, it's never 100% guaranteed. what we did was looked at the historical rates, and we also looked at the forecasted rates. And noticing that the actual rates, like I said, we had a charge in 18 of the 24 months. So that meant our rate was too low. When we looked at the average of the 2021 12-month period for the forecast, our rate was slightly above the base fuel rate now. And then we looked at the rate for the average of the 12 months in 2022. And that average rate was actually below the base fuel rate that we have now. So we just decided it made sense that if the forecast is lower than the rate we have now, and we're having a charge more often, that we are giving a refund or having the fuel cost come in lower, it just made sense to us that raising the rate a little bit based upon what we were seeing historically seemed like the right thing to do going forward.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then could we please refer to the testimony of Brad Daniel, page 11, lines 14 through 17? And I know that you all have had to take the time to explain Black Start to me before, so I'm going to ask for a brief description of what Black Start is, a Black Start unit is, and then why PJM would reimburse Duke Energy for having the Black Start capability.
John Swez responding. Black Start is the ability for a generator to come online without any assistance from the grid. Basically, it's from a dead bus. So meaning a normal power plant has to use energy to come online that it pulls from the grid. In Woodsdale's case, it provides a service that most generators can't do. It can actually come online without any help whatsoever from the grid. And that is a service that's valued by PJM due to the fact that if there was a disruption to the grid where there was no, basically if there was a blackout, the Woodsdale units could start up without any assistance, and PJM actually reimburses the company for that service.
Okay, and so is the reimbursement provided regardless of whether or not Woodsdale's running? It's just, otherwise is Duke just paid to have that capability?
So there's two types of reimbursements. There's occasionally we're required to test the units that we can actually do this. And so PJM pays us for the fuel consumed in that test. And the other kind of reimbursement was the cost of the Black Start itself. And PJM reimburses Duke for the cost of that service.
Okay. All right, and then I don't want to get your hopes up, but this is my final question. Could you please refer to Duke's response to Commission's second request, item 7? I think Ms. Miller might be the responding witness to this as well. Ms. Miller, let me know when you're there.
I'm ready.
All right, thank you. And there you state that the current base fuel rate of 2.3837 cents per kilowatt hour is close to the projected fuel rates for 2021 and 2022. But it falls between the 2021 average of 2.442 cents per kilowatt hour and the 2022 average of 2.3484 cents per kilowatt hour. But both of the projected average FAC rates are below the new recommended rate. And I know you covered this in your somewhat in your previous testimony, but given that the proposed new base rate is above the calculated rate for the next 2 years, could you explain further why it wouldn't be reasonable to leave the base rate at its current level?
Sure. Libby Miller responding. Like I said, and you said too, the forecasted rates are very close to the base rate that we have now. But the base rates that we continue to see over the 2-year period, it appeared to be too low, like I said, of the 18 of the 24 months. And then I know this is out of the review period, but I also looked at November 2020 to April 2021. And if I compared the base fuel rate to what we had projected for 2021, the forecasted rate was lower than the actual fuel rate for 4 of the 6 months. It seemed that it is a prudent decision that we should lean a little bit more toward the historical rate to prevent or to lessen the volatility. I know the volatility will never go away, but it appears to us in our analysis that it should be raised a little bit, and we have chosen March 2020 as the period that we want to use as the new base fuel rate. And this is the rate, the 0.025401. We think that this will be representative of the actual fuel costs that we see going forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. Your Honor,
You're
Commission
welcome.
staff has no further questions.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Chandler, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a very few. Good morning. Going back to Black Start for a minute, Mr. Suez. Does Woodsdale satisfy just Duke Kentucky's Black Start requirements, or is it the entire Duke Energy Ohio Kentucky LDA?
John Swaz responding. I didn't mention this, but Woodsdale actually has 2 Black Start units. So I believe at one time that was the entire Black Start for all of the Duke Energy Ohio Kentucky LBA. However, I still remember a few years ago there was an additional RFP that PJM that was submitted. So there might be an additional Black Start unit now, but I don't know. And I'm not sure if I can find that out either.
Well, and that's okay. And on that item, I understand that PJM for these Black Start units, Mr. Suez, puts out RFPs, and then the contracts for a defined period. Do you know how much longer those contracts for the Woodsdale unit, Black Start units are for?
John was responding. I do not know. In fact, I'd have to check. I honestly don't know if there is an end date.
Okay, all right, and we'll ask that in a post-hearing data request. The primary reason, Mr. Suez, I asked is if the Black Start units are part of, let me say this, the Black Start units at Woodsdale that are used to satisfy at least a portion of the LDA's Black Start plan. Are those revenues solely Duke Kentucky's revenues, or are they shared with another entity?
John was responding. I'm not aware they're shared. I was going to let Libby Witness Miller potentially answer the rest of that question, but to my knowledge, they're not shared.
Libby Miller responding. I do not recall at this time if they are how the revenues are recorded. If you would like to do a data request, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the Woodsdale units and their dual fuel capability, those units have different dispatch costs depending on the fuel, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and Mr. Suez, as part of that dispatch cost, as I understand it, units, especially CTs, are able to include variable operation and maintenance expense in their energy bids. Is there a difference in the variable O&M as it relates to the number of starts before a required overhaul between using fuel distillate or fuel oil and natural gas?
John was responding. I believe the maintenance requirement is a starts-based requirement. So it would not make a difference if the unit was started on oil or gas. It's still a start, and it would still have the same impact from the variable O&M requirement from that start.
Okay, so and that's how I understand it too. It's a number of starts between overhauls. So I just want to make sure I understand that doesn't matter between its use of fuel oil or natural gas.
John was responding, that's correct. And I should clarify, this is in the situation of these combustion turbines. Other combustion turbines, of course, might have a runtime or some other, but these are largely starts-based maintenance.
Okay. Have those Woodsdale units been economically dispatched for fuel oil, or have they been dispatched at all other than for testing?
John was responding, they actually were dispatched on fuel oil during the time period, February of 2021, when Texas had the event, call it. But yes, they were just fuel oil during the week of, I believe, February 13th through the 20th.
Okay. And I guess I would ask, from a dispatch perspective or a bid perspective, how do you at what price do you offer those units in a day ahead if you're not necessarily sure which fuel they're going to be using in the real-time markets? How does that work for fuel and bid and cost purposes?
John was responding, without having to do a post-data hearing request and getting the experts to answer this question, we do both a cost-based, of course, a cost-based offer and a price-based offer, and we do both an offer on oil and gas. But we work with the market monitor and make sure our offers are in compliance with the fuel cost policy, of course. And when the natural gas price goes above the oil, then the oil would be offered below the cost of gas. I'd have to get you a better explanation in the post-data hearing request because it does get pretty complicated.
Well, and I just asked, there's not what I wanted to make sure is you don't have to commit to one. Is that right? Like once the unit gets committed by PJM and dispatched by PJM, they know then that unit for the different fuel is not available. Is that fair?
So in the case, using February as an example, the good thing for us was that oil was so much cheaper than natural during that time period. Natural gas prices at Woodsdale Station increased at times close to $100 a decatherm. So there really was no uncertainty with oil being so much cheaper. We pretty much just offered the units 100% on oil during that time, and there was no uncertainty.
Okay. And then, in addition to testing, is there any requirements for a significant amount or any amount of turnover of the fuel oil at Woodsdale? Does it have to be run every so often? Just to keep things moving. I'm just curious, how long can the fuel oil sit there without being used before some action needs to be taken?
John was responding. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question. I have heard of other stations that have a requirement. I'm not aware of one at Woodsdale, but I'd have to check.
Well, and my question, and we'll ask it in a post-hearing data request, are there additional costs incurred to maintain the fuel oil if the fuel oil is not used for dispatch? And if so, is that a cost the company seeks to recover through the FAC?
And John was responding, like I said, I'd have to check, but I'm not aware of any additional cost or basically any additional requirement to run the units periodically other than normal testing. I'm not aware of any requirements to run the oil to quote unquote, keep it from getting old or whatever, whatever the requirement would be. I've never heard of that kind of requirement.
Okay. As it relates to ARRs and FTRs, are there paths that the company has allocated ARRs that are paths that both Duke Kentucky and Duke Energy Ohio receive power?
Johnson was responding. When we receive ARRs, of course, we have to forecast the generation that we're going to utilize in the future for that time period. Typically, we use 100% of that ARR revenue to buy FTRs. Obviously, our units are part of the grid that is both Kentucky and Ohio. I think I'd have to get, I honestly can't remember the rest of your question, but we do, there's a joint, it's a grid, it's together, but we're converting those ARRs to FTRs based on the expected generation from the unit.
Right. So let me ask you this. So ARRs are allocated to load, right? And they're, as I understand it, they're path-based, right? So it's I don't know if it's necessarily this, but it's basically point to point, right? And I'm just curious, are you saying that Duke Kentucky just self-schedules all the ARRs into FTRs upon receipt or upon allocation?
Johnson was responding, and that is the case because if we think back for Duke Kentucky, we bought the Dayton share of East Bend. However, we were not allocated the ARRs for that share. So when PJM allocates ARRs, they're allocating a 69% share, the share from only the Duke legacy portion of East Bend. However, we're forecasting the unit to run, it's running 100%, right? We own the whole unit now. So that's one reason why we tend to buy more FCRs than we are allocated in ARR revenue.
Okay, so you all buy, what you're saying is you purchase additional FTRs, annual or monthly, from the auctions above what you're allocated and then converted from ARRs.
Yeah, Johnson was responding, that is correct. Again, that is typically due to the fact that the allocation for East Bend was not 100%. It was reduced due to the fact that when the ARRs were determined, we did not own 100% of the unit.
And so effectively, the reason you purchased that to hedge against the possible congestion?
So we purchased FTO in accordance with the forecasted burn of the generation. And so we use a model to forecast the amount of generation coming from that unit in the future. And in the case of East Bend, it's a pretty economic unit. It tends to dispatch well into the market. And so the reason then we need additional FTRs is to hedge against that additional generation.
Right, but when you hedge against it, you're hedging it. You're basically wanting to participate in an FTR market to have a fixed risk, right? To not have any additional downside risk over that fixed amount that you paid for. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, the FTR is a hedge against congestion.
Okay, and what is your downside? Do you all look at whether or not it makes sense to continue to pay that 30+%, amount that you don't have from East Bend, continue to pay that amount in each monthly or annual FTR auction, what the magnitude of that cost to purchase those FTRs are, first what the expected downside risk of the congestion is?
We do a fairly robust analysis looking both at historically about how much ARR revenue was received and how much FTR, how much we spent for the FTR, and additionally what the value was and what the amount of congestion was. So we do look at that monthly, and so that analysis is completed, yes.
Okay, so you'll have that monthly analysis for the entire 2-year review period?
Yeah, John's was responding, that is correct.
We'll ask for those, I guess, if they're 10 monthly, those in the post-hearing data request. If Duke Energy Ohio and Duke Energy Kentucky have to share or take energy from the same paths that ARRs are allocated to, or participate jointly in the FTRs. I'm also going to I'll have staff ask a post-hearing data request to explain that relationship and how those costs and benefits are shared between the companies. That's all I have, Chairman. Thank you.
Dr. Matthews, questions?
I don't have any questions, thanks.
Mr. DeCenzo, any redirect examination?
Sorry, couldn't find the unmute. No, I don't have any, Your Honor. Thank you.
Let's talk about the post-hearing data requests. Mr. Penny, how long do you think it'll take you to get these drafted, most of which I guess are from Vice Chairman Chandler?
Can I have until Thursday to get this one?
Okay, Thursday,
Which is the
20th. Okay. Mr. DeCenzo, if Mr. Penny can have his post-hearing data requests to you by the end of the day on Thursday, how much time do you think your client may need to prepare responses?
Could we have 7 business days, Your Honor?
You sure can. Why don't you just take 8 and go to the 28th? You can go, that will give you 8 days, so you'd have that till that Friday. Is that fine? Okay.
Very good, thank you.
Anytime you get anything extra, even a little day from this commission, you need just to be thankful for it. Okay. Is there anything further, Mr. Penny, or?
The commission staff has nothing.
Okay, we have nothing else? All right. Then, Mr. DeCenzo, your witnesses may be excused, and unless you have something further to provide to the commission at this time, we'll adjourn the hearing.
I have nothing, thank you,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Thank you. Then this hearing is adjourned, and we'll take up Big Rivers Electric Corporation in just a second.
I only have 3 questions for Big Rivers.
Kentucky, you're doing good. That's what we said. We're now back on the record. And this is case number 2021-00058, Big Rivers Electric Corporation. At this time, would counsel for Big Rivers please identify himself along with the witnesses who will testify this morning.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is Cynthia Santana, General Counsel for Big Rivers Electric. My business office is at 201 3rd Street, Henderson. We also have General Counsel Tyson Camath available here with us today. And the witnesses we have today with me are Mark McAdams, Natalie Hankins, Jennifer Stone, Roger Hickman, Jason Burden, Ronald Gregory, and Christopher Bradley.
Okay, thank you. And for staff?
Jeb Penny on behalf of the commission. Also, commission staff members Sarah Jankowski, John Rognes, and Mike Foley are participating.
Okay. Ms. Santana, it looks as if public notice has been given and filed into the record. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
And do you have, I assume you have one or more outstanding confidentiality motions. Is that also correct?
Yes, Your Honor, we do have one motion outstanding.
If during the course of the hearing a question is asked or an answer is about to be given which you feel may compromise Big River's position on confidentiality, please just speak up and we'll either go into confidential session or figure out how to get the information by way of a post-hearing data request, okay?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Now it's time for public comment. Should anyone from the public like to provide the commission with public comment, instructions to call in are located on our website, psc.ky.gov. The phone lines will remain open for several minutes prior to the start of this hearing and close if there are no callers or after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Should you call in, please state your name and address for the record before making your statement, and please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If there is more than one caller, please be respectful and allow one person to make a statement at a time. It should be noted that comments may always be submitted to the Public Service Commission at its website, which is once again psc.ky.gov. Ms. Santana, if your witnesses will all raise their right hands, we will swear them in, after which you may conduct a direct examination.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, you want me to check to see if there's anybody online?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I anticipated there isn't, but I guess you better check. Yeah.
The forms have to be observed, all right.
Just,
This is Jeb Penny with the Public Service Commission. Is there anybody online that wishes to speak to Big River Electric Corporation's fuel adjustment clause case? I don't hear anybody.
all right, there's no one online as expected. So if the Big River's witnesses would now all raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, counsel, you may conduct a direct examination of each of your witnesses, after which Mr. Penny may conduct a cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll start with Mark McAdams. Mr. McAdams, could you please state your name, your position, and your business address for the record?
I'm Mark McAdams, Director of Fuels Procurement, Big Rivers Electric Corporation, 201 3rd Street, Henderson, Kentucky, 42420.
Testimony and
Ms. Santana, we're having difficulty hearing you. You sort of cut in and out. If you wouldn't mind beginning again, it'd be appreciated.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will. Mr. McAdams, did you cause to be filed in this matter responses to data request and testimony?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any revisions to those responses?
No, I do not.
So if you were asked those questions today, would the answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you, Mr. McAdams. Natalie Hankins is next. Ms. Hankins, could you please state your name, your position, and your business address for the record?
Natalie Hankins, Senior Power Portfolio Optimization Analyst, 201 3rd Street, Henderson, Kentucky.
Thank you. And Ms. Hankins, did you cause to be filed in this matter direct testimony and responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any revisions to those answers?
No, I do not.
And if those questions were asked today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you, Ms. Hankins. And now we'll go to Jennifer Stone. Ms. Stone, could you please state your name, your position, and your business address for the record?
Jennifer Stone, Manager of Finance, business address 201 3rd Street, Henderson, Kentucky, 42420.
Ms. Stone, did you cause to be filed in this matter responses to data requests?
Yes.
And do you have any revisions to those responses?
No.
So if those same questions were asked today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Roger Hickman. Mr. Hickman, could you please state your name, your position, and business address for the record?
Roger Hickman, Regulatory Affairs and Manager at Big Rivers Electric Corporation, 201 3rd Street, Henderson, Kentucky, 42420.
Thank you, Mr. Hickman. And Mr. Hickman, did you cause to be filed in this matter responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any revisions to those responses?
I do not.
Mr. Hickman, if those same questions were asked today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. And now to Jason Burden. Mr. Burden, could you please state your name, your position, and your business address for the record?
Jason Burton, Director of Production Services. Physical address is 201 3rd Street, Henderson, Kentucky.
Mr. Burden, did you cause to be filed in this matter some responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Burden, do you have any revisions to those responses?
No, I do not.
So if those same same questions were asked today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. And now Ronald Gregory. Mr. Gregory, could you please state your name, your position, and your business address for the record?
Gregory, Director of Maintenance Services and Project Management for Big Rivers Electric Corporation. Physical address 201 3rd Street, Henderson, Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. And Mr. Gregory, did you cause to be filed in this matter responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any revisions to those responses?
No, I do not.
So if those same questions were asked of you today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. And now Christopher Bradley. Mr. Bradley, could you please state your name, your position, and your business address for the record?
Chris Bradley, I'm Director of Transmission Systems, 201 3rd Street, Henderson, Kentucky.
Mr. Bradley, did you cause to be filed in this matter responses to data requests?
Yes, I did.
And Mr. Bradley, do you have any revisions to those responses?
No, I do not.
So if those questions were asked of you today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. Your Honor, Big Rivers tenders their witnesses for cross-examination.
Mr. Penny, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much. All right, good morning, everybody. Would you please refer to Big River's Response Commission's first data request, item 4, and can you all confirm that Big Rivers did not enter into any long-term coal contracts for the period under review?
McAdams, Big Rivers responding. Big Rivers did not enter into any long-term contracts under the period in review.
Okay, and then can you state when Big Rivers last issued written requests for proposals for long-term fuel contracts?
Mark McAdams responding. Big Rivers issued a term bid solicitation November 2nd, 2020. That was bid 21-02, a 1 to 3 year bid solicitation, returned November 16, 2020.
Okay, and as a result of that, was a contract or contracts awarded?
Mark McAdams responding. A contract was awarded and subsequently a spot procurement has been made from that solicitation.
Okay. All right, thank you. And now I'd like for you all to refer to the confidential attachment 1 to response to the PSC's request number 22. And Ms. Santana or Mr. Kamoff, if I start to talk about confidential information, please make your objections known and we'll go into confidential session. I'll do my best to couch my questions in such a way that we will not need to go into confidential session. I think Mr. Hickman and Mr. McAdams might have been the responsible witnesses for this.
And there?
All right. You there, Mr. McAdams? Okay. Excellent.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. And so in this response, it provides an explanation of reduced coal usage at Green Station after May 2022. But the year-over-year sales from 2021 listed in this confidential attachment are just slightly larger. So can you explain then what's driving the increase in fuel costs for May 2022?
Art McAdams responding. We are at this point in time anticipating that the coal generation will shift at large to the Wilson Station. At that point in time, Wilson Station currently has slightly higher cost, and that cost will be experienced early in 2022. However, with the planned FGD installation, we anticipate a broader array of coal supply and an opportunity to do some work at Wilson Station to further lower its coal supply costs.
Okay. And then if you could please take a look at attachment 2 to the same question, item number 22. The confidential response to item 22, attachment 2, and then also the response to item 30. Item 30 shows that for the year, I'm sorry, I'll give you a second to get there. I'm really excited. This is the last question, so forgive me for jumping ahead. All right. So item 30 shows for the year 2022 significant reductions in use of coal and fuel oil and only a slight increase in natural gas from 20 to 21. However, if you go back to item 22, when usage and cost appears to be declining in item 30, but there's increased fuel costs in item 22. Can you describe why we have increased fuel costs in item 22, but decreasing fuel costs in item 30?
Mark McAdams responding for Big Rivers. We anticipate that we'll have the FGD installation, and based upon that, we'll be able to look at a broader array of coal that will afford us, we believe, a forward-going lower cost of coal. We will have some coal contracts that were initiated earlier that will carry forward into Wilson Station. The market for coal has decreased slightly, and we'll have a broader opportunity, we believe, in terms of varying qualities of coal that we'll be able to utilize at Wilson Station. So we'll move down overall in the number of tons, and we believe as we go forward in 2022 that we'll move further down in coal cost. But we will have some initial carry forward of some contracts that are at a slightly higher cost.
Okay. And then just to clarify, what was the installation you were discussing? I couldn't make that out. You're saying that you're going to install, what were you going to install?
The flue gas desulfurization project for Wilson Station. Excuse me, McAdams responding.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Vice Chairman Chandler, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a few follow-up questions to what Mr. McAdams is saying there. So I just want to make sure I understand the forecast that you're discussing. Does it presume the green conversion?
Mark McAdams responding. At this point in time, it does presume the green conversion.
Okay. And the installation of the FGD, that's the FGD that's being moved from the Coleman Station. Is that correct?
McAdams responding. Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and looking at the forecast, the green conversion, and we have the specific date that we can look at in the CDCN application for what the in-service date, proposed in-service date of that is. But with regard to the FGD and the ability of Wilson Station to come back on and burn, different coal, right? Or coal of we'll say different quality or different characteristic. What is that installation date? And then following that installation date, what's the date in which Wilson will be able to be back on? Useful following installation.
Ron, would you like to address that?
Chairman, I just need to caution here, if we're going to have specific dates, we do have motion of confidentiality in regards to outages associated with that project. I'm just concerned that if the witness provides specific dates that might disclose some confidential information, we may need to go into a confidential session, please.
We
I
can do,
appreciate that. I don't know that it's necessarily confidential to understand when the in-service date of a $100 million project is, moving that FGD from Coleman to Wilson. But if that's subject to your petition, and it may be, then we can move on to confidential session. Is that what you're requesting?
Yes, Your Honor, yes.
all right, let's go into confidential session. Can we take care of that? the one question that, about whether Dr. Matthews had a question. All right. As I understand it, Ms. Santana, you have no redirect examination, is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor, we have none.
Mr. Penny, how long will you need to construct data requests as submitted by Vice Chairman Chandler?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay, 5/19. Ms. Santana, how long will you or your client reasonably need to prepare responses?
Your Honor, I'm going to ask for 7 business days, please.
I'm sorry, how many days?
7 business days?
Oh, that's fine, 7 business days. Let's see, where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'd be the 28th, I guess, so your responses would be due on May 28th. If there's a problem or something comes up that you can't make the 28th, just basically file a 1 or 2 sentence motion and you'll have additional time provided. All right, if there's nothing more, then Ms. Santana, your witnesses are excused, and unless you have something additional to bring before the commission at this time, we'll adjourn the hearing.
Nothing else, Your Honor. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. At this time, this hearing is now adjourned.